Welcome back. I've got Donzel Legett on the line. Donzel, how are you?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me. Actually, you pronounced my name Donzel, but believe me, I've been called Donzel so much across my life, especially since Denzel Washington became popular in family.
There you
So,
go.
so don't
Well,
worry about it.
I appreciate the correction on that. So I know appreciate your time today for sure. So why don't you share a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, so look, I'm originally from Key West, Florida. Most people who've been to Key West think there's no one that's actually from there, but believe me, there are still some authentic conchs. We call them saltwater conchs if you're from Key West. So, born and raised there, came to the Midwest to go to Purdue University, played college football there in the late 80s, and then had over a 30-year career in industry, and was a vice president for a long time, and led. A lot of international organizations for 15 to 16 years, and led teams that were spread out across over 30 different countries. Had over 10,000 folks on my team, so really got a chance to develop different leadership capabilities and test out my leadership theories. And then from a family standpoint, married for over 30 years, four young adults, great family structure, and happy to be here.
That's amazing. I always love stories, about people, especially, when certain parts of the country, which again, you think Key West, I've been there. It's been, a bit of time since I've been there, but, you think, your humble beginnings there to, what you've been able to accomplish so far in your career, speaks volumes and gives everyone all kinds of inspiration because it doesn't matter where you're from per se. I mean, it does. I mean, it's a foundation thing for you, but you don't have to use it as, well, I'm just from there. We don't do things there. Well, don't pigeonhole yourself like that because you're going to be able to crush it. And obviously, you left Key West and decided, hey, let's go where it's cold and snow in winter. And having spent, I'm a Midwestern guy myself, and grew up in the Detroit area and spent several years in Chicago. And one thing about winters, when people say, well, was Chicago winters worse than Detroit? Like by 1,000%. Uh, you walk by Sears Tower when the wind's kicking in February. You'll know what I'm talking about. That not comfortable
Yeah.
by any stretch. But yeah, that's why anybody
Listen,
that go ahead.
I lived in Minnesota for 21 years, and I can tell you the winters there are way worse than winters in Chicago.
Oh, I would not. I've been to Minneapolis and in other parts of Minnesota, over the years. I've never been there during the winter, but I know a lot of people that are from that area or been there, and they're like, You don't have winter. Don't even come to us with your winter jokes." But yeah, I know. You guys take the brunt of it for the rest of us,
Good.
and we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Uh, but yeah, so you make that move, and obviously that's a transition,
Yeah.
from not just from a climate standpoint, but just way of life, because Key Largo, I said Key Largo, I'm thinking of old songs. Key West, Jimmy Buffett talked about it all the time. All these. You think about that area, and it's like, okay, it's just a relaxed approach to life, take it as it comes, enjoy every moment of it, kind of thing. And then the Midwest tends to be a little intense. Minnesota, maybe not as much as, let's say, downtown Chicago, but it's still, there's that intensity that is dramatically different. So, walk us through, those early days when, you got used and you figured out, okay, this is a winter jacket. Okay, I know what this feels like. Okay, talk us through those early days. And, one, I guess, why did you choose to go there? Because Florida, Florida State, there's
Right,
all
right.
kinds of other, great universities, in the great state of Florida. But,
Yeah.
what made you head north?
It's an interesting story because it kind of intertwines both questions. First I had family that lived in Indianapolis. My aunt had married a guy who was in the military down in Key West, but he was from Indianapolis. So when they got married, they moved there. So when I was little, I'd go there to visit them pretty much every summer. So I was familiar with Indiana. Um, and then the other thing was, as I looked at what I wanted to do, I was pretty good in school and I was a pretty good athlete. But I was cognizant of the fact that, not everyone makes it to the NFL or anything like that. And I was like, hey, I need to go to a school that's a really good school. That was my priority. And Purdue is very highly respected worldwide, but certainly in the South. A lot of people, actually thought it was an Ivy League school. I was being recruited by a couple of Ivy League schools, but I thought, man, Purdue is great. And on the football field, I thought there was a good chance to play right away. And then, quite honestly, my high school head coach had played ball at Maryland, but one of the guys he was close to from his college days was the athlete, the recruiting coordinator at Purdue. So they were close. And so he told him about me. That guy came down when I was like a sophomore in high school, and so they had the inside track to me. And then my coach, because he was from Maryland and had lived in other places in the country, he kind of helped prepare me a little bit more for, hey, it's relaxed here, but here's what competition looks like. I mean, we had a pretty competitive philosophy, and also prepared me for, the idea of going to the Midwest. I was going to deal with a different climate. So I had that mindset. But the big thing that people miss about Key West that helps, actually, there's some things that don't help. Like it's an island lifestyle, so it's very complacent, and that kind of thing. There's no rush to doing things, but there's a lot of people from all over the world there because tourists are coming in. But we also had a huge naval base there, so there were a lot of people from around the country at the naval base. And just a lot of different, I mean, if you've ever been there, man, there's a lot of different people, a lot of different lifestyles. So I was always around different people, different lifestyles, different languages, people from different parts of the country. So that prepared me for, and actually made me curious about getting out of that island and seeing the rest of the world, seeing the rest of the country, and being exposed to different things. Because I equated being around so many different people always would spark my interest to learn. And I thought, if I get out of here, I'm going to learn a lot more, a lot fast, and it's going to make me my development accelerate, not only as an athlete, but again as a student and as a person. So that's kind of how it all came together and kind of directed me to Purdue.
Man, it's really cool that you had a coach that had collegiate experience because
Yes.
yeah, we know the tiers of professional sports. There's high school, there are just, you have completely amazing athletes, but then that next step to play in the college level is a different game completely.
Oh,
And
for
of
sure.
course, we know the pros is a even different stratosphere type of situation. But the fact that you had a coach that was vested in you and
Yes.
interested, and not just you, but your entire team, to kind of guide them, because some of them may have not had aspirations to play collegiately or even potentially professionally, but it's like let's teach you, how you got to prepare for this,
Yes.
and level it up, which of course, create it. And I know this and you know this too, but I see it all the time. Uh, Not only with people that are in the military, but professional athletes as well. The discipline it takes to
Yes.
perform at your best, those are lessons that will stick with you your entire life, no matter what you do.
Yes.
And that's why whenever I speak with, former athletes, current athletes, people that have served in the armed forces, there's a lot of similarities there,
Yeah.
because it's that discipline and preparation to be your best all the time. Because when you have that, I find, at least in workplaces and in leadership, it creates that opportunity where you're going to show up to be your best, even on those days where you're not feeling it. But what? I got to go ahead and do it. You
Yes.
see the stories all the time, of athletes, that are, basically in the back puking their guts out. Then they go back out on the court and score 42, and you're like, geez, how do we make you sick every day? Kind of thing. But it's just, again, it's just one of those things that I've observed from, you know being a fan, obviously, of sports and
Yes.
having ton of family members that have served.
Yes.
I see those connections, and it's like that discipline and determination to be your best, not discipline, well, I got to do the job, but to be your best no matter what, is something that I just admire in people, because when you see that they're successful, I look at it and go, well, that's not a surprise to me,
No,
because
that's
they
right.
they did the work.
That's right. And one of the things that I think it's really important for me to mention as well, knowing that this is a leadership podcast, is one of the really great lessons I got about leadership was again from my high school coach, And it was this idea that, you have to be able to flex your leadership based on the people you're leading. And you can't just, you can try to just have one leadership style. It may work. But what'll work better is if you know your players, know what they need, understand how to reach them. And as an example, my junior year, I actually quit. I was not happy with my position coach and how he was coaching me. I didn't like to be talked to certain ways. Thought I was pretty smart. Just tell me. You don't have to yell and scream. Just tell me. And I just like, you know what? I got options, man. I can play basketball, get a scholarship. I'm a good student. I had academic scholarships. I was like, I don't need this. So I quit. So my head coach, high school head coach, came to my house, sat down with me, and asked my parents if he could just talk to me. And he explained to me that yes, I could walk away if I wanted to. I had other options, but life is hard. Life's tough. And I can't just walk away every time. So that was the first thing that he explained. The other thing he explained to me was the opportunity that I had in football was different than the other areas because football, you not only, get the opportunity to get a scholarship, but you have to understand how to work within a team, a large team of many different people, individuals. And you go through what you described. You have to fight. You have to learn how to, you know, go through the process of building your endurance. That's not fun. Lift weights and balance your studies. It's going to make me grow in a different way. And I remember him telling me, if all of that doesn't work, I will allow you, hey, if you need a ride, you take my car. If one of the coaches isn't talking to you the way you need him to, but you need a lesson, I'll tell you the lesson and I won't scream at you. I'll explain it in a way you can understand. And so why that was important, I went back. Obviously, I went back the very next day, went back out and stayed out there. But the reason why is because it showed me what it takes to be a leader. Sometimes you have to humble yourself and be willing to go to the person that needs you, especially if you think they have potential. And that was the main thing he told me. You have potential. I don't want to see you throw it away or not maximize it. And so I think sometimes us as leaders have to remember it's not what we think people need. It's getting to know them and understanding what they actually do need and being willing to sacrifice our time and ourselves to maximize each person's potential, not just the overall group, but each person's potential. So I just wanted to share that story because I'm really indebted. His name is Coach Freeman. Coach Freeman made a difference in my life. I may not be here in this position with a book coming out if it wasn't for Coach Freeman.
Yeah, it's that investing in your people, whether it's a high school football coach or a teacher or a boss or a
Yes.
mentor. It pays humongous dividends because he easily could have went, all right, we've got, other kids that we can play. We'll plug along. All right, no big deal. And who knows what your career would have looked like? It could, who knows? It's
Right.
so hard to determine, but he invested the time. Instead of, come to me if you have any problems, he went to you.
Went to me.
And that's a big, big difference. And
Yeah. One of
obviously,
the concepts I talk about in my book is I have a leadership model. It's called the Destiny Development Delta Model. And it's made up
mhm,
of the A attitudes of leadership, which are leadership behaviors, and I lead change, how to operationalize it. But of the leadership behaviors, are a couple that I think people forget about. One is accessibility, and one is adoration. Accessibility is making yourself available for people to come to you. That there's no roadblock, there's no door, there's no invisible barrier. But like you said, the best leaders go to the people. And then adoration is showing care and love. And again, you can have an aura that you care about people, but the best leaders go to the people that need it most and show them the love that they need. That's what Coach Freeman did for me. He came to me, made himself accessible proactively, showed me love and care that he had for me, which made me realize I got to step up. If this guy is going to go through that for what am I going to do? So you're exactly right.
that's a great segue into your new book that's coming out. So why don't you share a little bit about the book? I mean, you've kind of done that a little bit, but let's dive into the book a little bit more. And I ask authors, I'm fortunate enough to get to speak to a lot of authors on our show.
Yeah.
And a question that I commonly ask is, what in the world would make you want to give up so much of your life to write a book? Because it's time consuming to say
Yeah.
the least, from idea, concept, editing, book covers, the publishing, the promotion, all of these things. So, what motivated you to write this book?
Yeah, and I'm gonna hold it up because I got my proof. This is the very first physical proof copy. There are a couple things we need to get the printer to make some changes on, but it was so exciting to receive this in the mail. The title is called "Make Your Destiny Happen," and what's interesting is in answering your question, I'm on kind of a different wavelength from some other folks in terms that I had a plan. I put together a life plan very early, like in my early 20s for what I wanted my life to be and what I wanted to do and how I wanted it to work, not only from a career standpoint, but personally, relationships, my family. I had all of it in there. And so as I was going through my career, I had this idea, if this works, you got to put this in a book to help others. So I had this idea of writing a book for a long time, and it was in my life plan. And so as years would go by, and I started crystallizing my leadership philosophy and testing it in real life terms, specifically in business with these large organizations I was leading, people from all over the world I was leading, and I was able to see that my philosophy worked no matter whether I was, talking to people in Boston or whether it was people in Indiana or people in California or Ohio or Oklahoma. It didn't matter. It worked. I used it in Mexico. It worked. Canada, it worked. China, it worked. India, it worked. Even across languages. And so as that, I started showing, I was like, wow, this can really be impactful for people. So for me, I wrote the book. I'd always had this plan. And then when I sat down to actually write it, I wrote the content in a pretty short period of time, like 6 months. I had the whole thing written. Um, it was all the things you mentioned after that that's taken a long time. Editing takes a long time, and that I hadn't thought about, to be honest. When I first thought about writing a book, I thought about it's all about getting all your ideas out there. I didn't really understand what editing was about. I wrote it in 6 months. It's taken me 4 years to edit this thing, just to go through all the edits. And when you start, and it's funny because you think you've edited the first time. Oh, I got everything. You read it again, you're like, how did I miss that? After the fifth time, you're still finding stuff. It's like, wow. And then to your point, going through the process of working with marketers and I'm self-publishing, so going through that process. But it's been wonderful. I mean, I can't tell you, man, how proud I am to be at this point. And I'm really proud, not because I just wrote the book, but because I'm highlighting and giving credit to so many people who've had an impact in my life. I talked about my head football coach in high school, but in the book, you'll also see I talk a lot about my great grandmother who lived to be 107. She babysat me when she was in her 80s, and she probably had the greatest impact on my values and my character of anyone, her, my grandmother, my mother. I tell stories about people that I work with and the impact they had on me. I tell stories about how you can find mentors and you should be looking for mentors in every aspect of society. A lot of people think mentors can only be someone who's achieved more than you, who's older than you, or something like that. No, mentors anybody that knows something you don't and is willing to share it with you. And I got this great story to hear how a janitor actually mentored me in investing. Believe it or not, the guy had never even graduated high school, but he was a millionaire. People ignored him, but I got to know him and found out the guy taught me his investment secrets. So this has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life to get to this point, to have the book written and coming out. And so, yes, it was time consuming, but man, it was part of my long-term plan. The book actually articulates how to build a life plan, how to do what I did, and also how to make sure you're achieving what you want in life while at the same time having balance in your life and having well-being in your life. So that's the story.
There's nothing like, because I've, published books when you first, when you, especially, when you actually physically touch
Yes.
a book that has, I mean, I have children, you have children.
Yes.
I don't want to compare it, but it's definitely the birth of something that is from you.
Yes.
And you hold it and you go, and you can always release revised editions, by the way, when you figure out, oh, how did I forget that? It happens. We do, just because when there's so much to pull from,
Yes.
you want to have everything in there, but then you like, how did I forget that? That's such an instrumental part of how I became or started doing this. And it's like you can always revise it. But ultimately it boils down to, like I said, the journey of your life thus far. And I agree with you, and I commend you, for mentioning, that janitor, not just from an investment standpoint kind of thing, but and I say this tongue in cheek, janitors know where all the dirt is.
Yes.
They are uh, some of the most intellectual, intelligent individuals that I've ever encountered. I remember my janitor from elementary school and the janitor in high school. And there's a mall that I do mall walking when the weather's not nice outside. And there's a couple janitors there that are working early in the morning before the mall opens up. And I've had conversations with them. It's like you know, they they are in tune with all kinds of different things, and so I implore people, strike up a conversation with the
Yes.
janitors in your life, because you're going to be amazed how much they will teach you. And as you said, they can be a mentor to you on how to navigate all kinds of different things. So when you're putting all this, and obviously the editing thing, yeah, that takes a long time. I equate it to like putting on a Broadway play. It's like, okay, you write the play. Okay,
Yeah.
again, doesn't take long. The rehearsals and getting all the pieces together, lighting and decor and decorations and costumes and all that kind of stuff it seems like 18 years compared to, the year of writing it. And it's
Yeah.
frustrating, but the details are so important and you want it. And it's always difficult 'cause sometimes you have to step away from it and have somebody else kind of look at it. But it's like, okay, how does this flow? Because you're writing and it's like, oh, this flows great. But then, as you said, you've revised it, several times because you're reading it and like, that's not what I intended. It's
What
there,
are
but
you
it's
talking
not. Yeah,
about?
it's like, who wrote this?
Right.
You know,
Did I
look at
really
the
write that?
look at the cover. I'm like, who? It's like,
Uh,
who? Was this an uncle or something that wrote this? I don't recognize any of this. But ultimately, what it does, because again, you want, especially when you write something, or create something or whatever it is, whether it's a book, a talk, a paper, whatever. The intent is, when it comes from your heart, is
yeah.
I am hopeful that the lessons that I am discussing in this content, or in your case, the book,
Yeah.
will make an impact on somebody's life, which has a ripple effect that impacts all of us. That's why I
Okay.
always celebrate authors and people that launch businesses and everything like that. Is like, you're creating something that's going to benefit humanity. Might be a
Yeah.
small section, might be just your community, but you know what? That impact is gigantic. And when we have that gift to be able to do that, it's, I get chills just thinking about it. It's like you're helping people,
Yes.
and obviously sharing your journey today and the backdrop of it. And we know, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Um, we are definitely starving for strong leadership in this world. There's a lot, and there's a lot of instances where we know there are some strong leaders, and there's some instances where it could be questionable. But I think that the stories that you've shared, and obviously there's got to be a ton more in this book, are
Yeah.
going to just basically flush out some great, inspiring tidbits of information for people to grab onto.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, that was the plan. I mean, the plan was a lot of what you described. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of strife for a lot of people in the world right now. To some people, it feels chaotic. It feels like they're losing control. It feels like they're being defeated and they don't even have a chance, And so I wrote this book so that everyone sees that, you know what, you have the agency to make your destiny happen. And here's a roadmap to do it. And so the model is all about identifying how to transform your leadership to be the leader of your life. You don't have to be a vice president or a coach or have a title that people think you're a leader to understand that you are the leader of your life. And if you want to take control of it, you can. And then I provide a process that allows people to operationalize that leadership. It's one thing to help people, give them the tools to transform their leadership. It's another thing to then say, now what do you do? So this model also always shows you how to do, to transform, but then gives you a roadblock to actually make things happen, to identify what you want and make that happen. And why do I want to do that? Because I feel like, yes, there's strong leadership in some places out there, but how much of it is strong positive leadership? You can always be a strong negative leader and use fear to motivate people, but that's not sustainable and it's not inspirational. What I'm trying to do is bring a positive leadership model so that people take control of their lives. And what I hope is that as they do that and they gain agency of their own lives, they then figure out, how can I help others? I wrote this book to share my story, but ultimately is to help people take control of their lives, achieve what they want, and be happy doing it. And it's not my definition, it's their definition of what they want and how should they be happy. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do. And if only one person takes this book and transforms their life and becomes and feels like that they're achieving the success that they want and the happiness they want in their life, it's a success. Now, if it's 10 times that, 100 times that, 1,000 times that, that's fantastic. But I'm doing this because I believe there's at least one person out there that needs that inspiration. And not just the inspiration, but also the tool set to make their life dreams a reality. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with this book.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident you're going to do that, and it's going to be more than one.
Oh, well, I hope so.
There will be. So, love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
Yes, please visit my website. It's www.destinydevdelta.com, destinydevdelta.com. But the title of the book is Make Your Destiny Happen. And if you simply type in makeyourdestinyhappen.com, it'll also take you directly to our website. I also have a short podcast that I just released. It's called the Make Your Destiny Happen Petite Podcast. And in that podcast, it's 5 to 6 minutes. We keep it very short, sweet, and to the point. That's why it's petite. And the idea is to deliver one message or one leadership sort of message from the book, a concept, but then follow it up with a story to bring it to life. And in this first season, I'm using stories of my dad. My dad passed away about 6 months ago, and I wanted to find a way to honor him. And so there's the stories are pretty, I think, or they're personal, but they're also kind of funny and have a meaning that relates directly to the concept. So check that out. It's both an audio version and video. Again, Make Your Destiny Happen Petite Podcast. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as on Facebook if you want to learn more. So if you just Google Make Your Destiny Happen, Donzel Legett, I'm sure all that will come up.
Awesome, and I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So, Donzel, thank you so much for your time and the inspiration that you're providing this world. It's making a huge difference. So, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael, and thank you for this platform. You're inspiring thousands of people. We appreciate it. I certainly appreciate being a guest today, and I want to thank you.